Thank you, Danny. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Long Beach. And congratulations to everyone here that you made it on Marathon Sunday. Yay! And we'll welcome others as I'm sure they'll be drifting in. UUCLB strives to be a welcoming and inclusive religious community rooted in love, trust, and freedom. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to those of you who are visiting for the first, second, or 10th time. If you are a visitor to our in-person service, please raise your hand so our membership committee members can greet you and offer you a welcome packet. You can also email membership at uuclb.org. To learn more about the church and explore membership, you're lucky today we have a starting point welcome workshop in the lounge at 11:30 after church. Our new member recognition service is next month in November, and we would love to include you. Let's take a moment to greet everyone respectfully and warmly. Hello.
Hi, Danny. How are you?
Well, Danny is playing the music, so I think that means our greeting time is over. A word, we have an area over here for those who are sensitive to smells and odors, so in the back of this area. After the service, if you are watching on Zoom, hello everybody, please stay for our virtual coffee hour, and you can chat with others in the congregation. For those of us on site, please join us for refreshments and conversation outside. A few announcements this morning. Please see the order of service and October advance newsletter and weekly announcements for more information about all of our many programs and activities. This Thursday is an important evening. We'll be on Zoom to hear all about the ballot propositions. And as we know, they get complicated. So I'm looking forward to that. Our fall boutique is starting. So this Sunday, next Sunday, you can bring in your plants. And then the sale will be the following 2 Sundays, the 17th and 24th.
Okay. Just one more announcement. We have our trunk or treat coming up on October 26th. It's one of our favorite events of the year. And you're all welcome to attend on Saturday the 26th. And think about if you can bring a car and what you would dress up your car as. Think about it. It's a costume for your car. Everybody can participate. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay. So now I'm going to invite everybody in, and this is a very meditative service today. It is a service where you are invited to receive and to be nourished and maybe challenged or opened a little bit. And whoever has come here today, you are in the right place, just as you are. And people may filter in as they find parking or not and wander in, and we will just continue to incorporate people into the service. We also have childcare outside in room 2-3, and our children and youth are doing a service project of offering water to the marathoners today. So that's what's happening. So today we begin with a reflection on the Jewish high holidays, which started on Wednesday evening at sundown with the festival of Rosh Hashanah, which is the celebration of the new year, followed by 8 days of reflection before the solemn observance of Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, the Day of Atonement. On the new year, the symbolic book of life is opened, inscribed with the names of the dead from the setting year, and yet to be written for the year to come. It is a time for looking at our lives unvarnished and with honesty, without illusions, and inviting ourselves to make a change. We also awaken to the chasm between the world as it is and the world to come, the world as we wish it to be, and pledge ourselves to be a part of Tikkun Olam, which is the repair of the world. Our service today brings the spirit of the high holidays as we reflect on the themes of facing death with fearlessness and forgiveness. And before we do our call to worship and chalice lighting, it is today with sorrow, grief, and anger that we acknowledge the 1-year anniversary of the October 7th attacks. This was the Saturday night, and Danny and I came into the church on Sunday morning holding this horrific event and unclear how everything would unfold. And we didn't know then exactly how and what had happened, but we did know that there were over 1,200 people, Israelis and people from the United States and all over the world, who were murdered, and that 250 hostages were violently taken. And over the past year, we have been a part of processing this grief and rage and witnessing as the events have unfolded in Israel and Gaza and here in our own community and across the nation. We have been a part of interfaith calls for peace and ceasefire, going to our city council as Long Beach passed a ceasefire resolution. We have stood in solidarity with campus free speech and protests, often going to encampments to support protesters. And we've been outspoken against both the rise of anti-Semitism and the rise of Islamophobia. And with horror, we have witnessed the beginning of and in continuance of Israel's retaliatory war on Gaza, which has killed over 41,000 people and displaced millions in what many call a genocide. The deep inhumanity and atrocities of the cascading tragedies are a moral injury that will only worsen as we witness further escalation into Lebanon and we fear a long and protracted regional war.
This June, the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association passed two tandem statements, one calling for the release of the remaining Hamas-held hostages, and one in solidarity with the Palestinian people. These words from the statements resonate with us today. Our faith community has long recognized the horrors of violent anti-Semitism against generations of Jewish people, and we reaffirm our commitment to their safety. Real harm has come to and continues to be suffered by those affected by the October 7 attack. We seek a world where our Palestinian and Jewish kin are safe. At the core of our Unitarian Universalist faith is the belief that life is sacred. There can be no peace and no justice unless it is for all people. We center ourselves in justice as we call for peace. Our call to worship today is from Rabbi Rachel Barenblatt, entitled Anew. Anew. Here's the thing. This year begins anew, even in the worst of times. The leaves will turn and fall, and then they'll grow again. And sometimes we're afraid, and we can't know what choice to make to keep anyone safe. Uncertainty's a bear. All we can do is seek out sweetness everywhere we may and work to fix what brokenness we find. The good news is we're not in this alone. We'll help each other, hope when light seems dim, and lift the sparks that darker days reveal. We'll love each other fiercely. In the end, there is no greater work that we can do. We who survive will help each other.
And will you light our chalice? Thank you. And these chalice lighting words are from Rabbi Brant Rosen, who is a leader for Rabbis for Ceasefire. Blessed is the light that illumines the path to Olam Haba, the world to come, where bombs falling above have long since melted into spreading calm on a distant horizon, where the dispossessed and expelled have no other memories than the softness of arms reaching out to welcome them home. Blessed is the light that shows us the way forward, this moment filling us endlessly with the vision of a world liberated, inspiring us with the strength to make it so. As we light this chalice, come, let us worship together.
Now is the time for turning. The leaves are beginning to turn from green to red and orange. The birds are beginning to turn and are headed once again towards the south. The animals are beginning to turn to storing the food for the winter. For leaves, birds, and animals, turning comes instinctively. But for us, turning does not come so easily. It takes an act of will for us to make a turn. It means breaking with old habits. It means admitting that we have been wrong, and this is never easy. It means losing face. It means starting all over again, and this is always painful. It means saying, I am sorry. It means recognizing that we have the ability to change. These things are hard to do, but unless we turn, we will be trapped forever in yesterday's ways. Spirit of life, help us turn from callousness to sensitivity, from hostility to love, from pettiness to purpose, from envy to contentment, from carelessness to discipline, from fear to faith. Revive our lives as at the beginning and turn us towards each other, for in isolation there is no life.
You may remain seated as we begin to sing our hymn 1037 in the Teal hymnal, which is a litany of atonement as adapted from the Litany of Atonement by Reverend Robert Eller Isaacs. And we're going to sing this sung response after each reading. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We forgive again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others, for the selfishness which sets us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in
losing sight of our unity, for those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of our separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
Our Sunday offering helps us to sustain our congregation alongside the generous pledges and contributions of our members and friends. As you offer your gift, take a moment to offer gratitude for our beloved community, the connections being made, the lives changed. Thank you for your generous financial support of UUCLB and all you do to help our church thrive. Our offering will now be gratefully received.
Blessed love, holy love, sacred love, abundant love, source of love, let your love shine down on me. From below, from above, love I hope I'm worthy of, source of love, let your love shine down on me. Before the morning light, I already feel it shining. Before I open up my eyes, I already see it shining. When my road is tough, I can feel your love, and that's enough for me. Blessed love, holy love, sacred love, abundant love, source of love, let your love shine down on me. As above, so below, love from whom all blessings flow, oh, source of love, let your love shine down on me. On me and the ones I love, shine from below and from above. Protect my family, be a light in me. On me and the ones I love, shine from below and from above. Protect my family, be a light in me. Be a light in me.
Thank you. A life in ministry is always full of the unexpected. I was in my second month of my first official position as interim director of religious education and assistant minister at All Souls, New York City, when I received a surprising phone call from the senior minister, Galen Gingrich, who is about to retire this year. "How's your Hebrew?" he asked. "My Hebrew," I said. "Well, non-existent really, a little bit of biblical Hebrew in seminary, but I'm willing to learn." And a few days later, I was on the chancel in a borrowed, way too big robe, leading 2 high holidays services for a congregation and a community of mixed religion families, seeking an open, free, and inclusive high holiday service. The congregation was located on the Upper East Side of New York City with a well-established Jewish community and offered annual holiday services and celebrations. We even printed our own prayer books, which I still carry with me today. Now, this was all pretty new to me, and I remember how nervous I was getting up there that first time in the too big robe as people streamed into the sanctuary, people I recognized and had never seen before. We didn't have a shofar player that year, and I was physically shaking as I ran into the media closet to press play on the CD that would cascade the sanctuary with the piercing sound of the shofar. And I barreled through that blessing over the candle lighting. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel yom tov. How'd I do? Awesome. I got a big pat on the back, an atta-girl from the senior minister, and an invitation to show up for Yom Kippur next week. And by the time we made it to Yom Kippur, I was a little better in my Hebrew and a little more confident. And I shook hands with people going through the line outside with tears in their eyes, seeing how meaningful those services were. And I was honored to be a part and to be asked for years to come to offer homilies and reflections. And that repetition of the liturgy started to do some spiritual work on me. And we have on our chancel today 2 musical leaders who have been hard at work this week leading high holidays services and listening to that liturgy. And I wonder if it has done some inner work on you. Well, one of the readings that I'm going to bring up today, and I already let Javon in on the secret, and she agreed. It's called Una Tana Tokef, and it's recited during both the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services. The piyut, or the liturgical poem, is from the Jewish apocalyptic tradition. And it's a theological reflection on the Day of Judgment. And in the Jewish tradition, the Day of Judgment is not something that comes at the end of life, but it is actually an annual arrival in front of divine judgment and self-judgment and the judgment of our community. Now, this prayer was purportedly written in the 11th century by Ammon of Mainz, Germany, who was an observant Jew who was subjected to extreme cruelty and torture by the bishop of Mainz, who was forcing him to convert to Christianity. And as the story goes, the bishop ordered the removal of Ammon's tongue for failure to confess Christianity, for failing to convert. But the bishop failed to show up at his sentencing. So instead, Ammon was still tortured, and his hands and feet were removed, but not his tongue. This is the story that comes into the liturgy. So after this horrific torture, it was considered a miracle that he retained his ability to confess his faith, and he remained strong in his faith. And so after Ammon survived, he was on his deathbed, and he asked to be carried to the synagogue for the High Holidays service. And he was I can imagine him seated at the front row, and the rabbi and the cantor were in the midst of the service, and they were about to recite the Kedusha, one of the most holy prayers, exalting and praising God. And Ammon interrupted the service from the pews, or from wherever he was, and began channeling this poem in full form. And then, as the story is told, as soon as he had finished reciting the prayer, he died. And 3 days later, he appeared in a dream to Rabbi Kalonymus, transmitting the prayer and insisting he share it with the Jewish diaspora. Let's listen to a little bit of this poem and reflect on it together. Remembering all that is forgotten, you open the book of remembrance which proclaims itself, and the seal of each person is there. The great shofar is sounded, a still small voice is heard, and the angels are dismayed. They are seized with fear and trembling. On Rosh Hashanah it is inscribed, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed. How many shall pass away, and how many shall be born? Who shall live, and who shall die? Who shall reach the end of his days, and who shall not? Who shall perish by water, and who by fire? Who by sword, and who by wild beast? Who by famine, and who by thirst? Who by earthquake, and who by plague? Who shall have rest, and who shall wander? Who shall be at peace, and who shall be pursued? Who shall be at rest, and who shall be tormented? Who shall be exalted, and who shall be brought low? Who shall become rich, and who shall become impoverished? The first time I heard this pute, I was a little shocked. I wonder how it sounds to you. A little gory, a little violent. I don't think I've ever heard a piece of liturgy naming so many methods by which a human being can die. And over time, hearing this from year to year, I've come to treasure it as one of the most profound spiritual practices of reflecting on death that I've encountered. And sharing that story with you, I find it also remarkable that it was written not by a clergy person or someone who had been ordained, but by an ordinary person who was faithful, who had experienced extreme suffering, and who had stared death in the face and interrupted the liturgy to share something that was utterly transformative for hundreds of years to come. What it seems to say, interrupting that regularly scheduled service, was that we do not get to choose the way we die, but we can choose the way we approach our own death. What is your worst case scenario of how you will die? That's a question that Roshi Joan Halifax asks in her book, Being with Dying. And then thinking of that worst case, she asks, how do you really want to die? What is your ideal way to die? Time and place and kind of death, and who is there with you? Are you alone? Are you with someone you love? Finally, she asks, what are you willing to do to die the way you want to to die? Amon's litany of death answers the Roshi's first question, enumerating the horrific and painful ways by which humans can perish. And while some means of death he names are truly Game of Thrones era, sadly, not many. Not many. In our violent world, terrorism, multiple genocides, mass shootings, and climate chaos have brought to our attention the already unpredictable and often senseless ways that people's lives can end. How do you really want to die? Roshi, Joan Halifax's graduate seminary class, she asked that question, and about a third of the class answered that they would like to die in their sleep. Many others said that they wanted to die alone and in peace or in nature. Only a few people, she noted, wished to die in a hospital or a nursing home setting, which is ironic, she said, because that is where most of us may meet the end of our lives. Almost everyone, she said, wanted to die in a way that was fundamentally spiritual, and a violent and random death was regarded as one of the worst possibilities. Dying painlessly and with spiritual support and a sense of meaning was considered to be the best of all possible worlds. Now, I don't think you need to be particularly religious to contemplate these questions. Transcending the teachings of religious traditions, humans have this universal drive for resolution at the end of our lives, whenever and however they may come. People of all faith and no faith wish to come to the end of our lives, whenever that may be, and find peace and acceptance and ease in our life choices and our relationships. Of course, there's no one right way to neatly tie up all of our loose ends and put a bow on our own deaths. And each person's path can be radically different. But there is a thread that we can weave throughout our lives year after year, helping us to approach our own death, our own and our loved ones' deaths with fearlessness and forgiveness. Now, so much of apocalyptic writing, like we heard, focuses on the fear of death. And some of us have come from religions of origin, which inspired a lot of fear about what happens after death and how we must live to get to the good place and avoid the bad place. And there is plenty of bad theology of death embedded in world religious traditions, and even I didn't read you the full excerpt from the Piyut, the liturgy, which then talks about that we can avoid a painful death by repair and repentance. And so God praises those who forgive and who do good works with a good death. That's a theology that we don't aspire to. And while this church and your personal belief system may not reinforce a vengeful and punishing God, for many of us, we still have to admit that maybe the primary emotion that we feel when we think about death is fear. It's fear. And it's natural to have fear about death and all of the questions that surround it, what it will be like, how it will happen, and what's next, if anything at all. Some of the things we fear are the pain and suffering that will face our bodies as we approach the moment of our death and our bodies and systems break down. We fear that we will not have enough money or enough care to support our end-of-life needs and the tremendous costs of our health care, assisted living, and all kinds of health care. And we fear the vulnerability of being alone at the hour of our death. We may also fear the vulnerability of being with someone at the moment of our death, and how hard that would be to look into the eyes of a loved one and breathe our last breath. We may fear the actual event of our death. Will it be too quick? Or will it be drawn out and labored? We fear the grief of our loved ones after we die, and we fear for providing care in our absence. We have fears, too, about our legacy. Fears that we haven't done enough in our lives, or that we will be forgotten. All of these fears are so normal, so ordinary, so common, and yet they are often unspoken. We often don't even speak them to ourselves, let alone our loved ones or our church or our friends. And fear can isolate us from experiencing death as a meaningful and transformative part of our lives. A place where we can meet a deep intimacy of love, offering love and being loved. And fear can turn our hearts into this clenched fist until we are confronted face to face with a life crisis or death right in front of us, and our fearful heart has no idea how to unclench, how to open, how to ask for help, how to let others in to be with us in our suffering and to be allowed into this beautiful and intimate moment. Now, while there are so many things we cannot change about our uncertain futures, there are ways that we can become more fearless. And I wonder if you have a few ideas. And one of those, I think, is that we can start sharing our fears and our wishes with our loved ones and our family. We can start answering a few of those questions about what we are afraid of. Like really naming, what is it that we are afraid of? Simply opening up intentional conversations can be a first step. And those conversations can change over time. So it's important to have them often. And I love how the tradition of the Days of Awe are this annual check-in. We don't save it for the end of life and piles up and where do I even start, but every year at this time, coming to the table, checking in with ourselves, what is on my heart that I am afraid of now? And I invite you to find your own rhythm that works for you. And then the next step after we have those conversations is to start to make plans. Make plans that are grounded in our wishes and our values, and plans that we articulate and we share with those who it matters to, whether that's our partner, our parents, our medical and healthcare providers. You are never too old or too young to make these plans. How many people under 50 have an idea of what their last wishes would be? Someone works in the funeral industry over there. Yes. Can't wait to hear your sermon next. That's one. So a few of us, but it's pretty rare. You know, people in their 20s, 30s are not always having their minds on these things. Maybe their parents are. And actually, the most meaningful intergenerational conversations can happen when a child, like me, talking to my mom, reaching out. And I didn't know what my mother's plans were, where she wanted to be buried. And so we had this beautiful conversation about where she would like to be buried, how she would like to be buried, how would a memorial look? And then I got to think about those questions for myself and talk with Sam about it. And we didn't come to all the conclusions, but we had the conversation. So making these advanced plans, whether that's medical directives or other kinds of healthcare plans, can provide comfort and assurance to you that when you get to need them, they will be there for you. And your wishes, your choices will be respected and honored. And that is incredibly comforting and empowering. Likewise, you can start to imagine what wishes you might have for your body after you die. Do you wish to be cremated or buried in a simple or an elaborate casket? Are you interested in a green burial that carries forth your commitment to earth stewardship? Do you wish to have a fancy headstone with something engraved on it? Or do you wish to have a simple stone in a garden? Or is there a tile, a memorial wall here at church? Would you like a tile? We'll hear more about that as well. Or would you simply like to have a tree planted in your name or a garden? There are so many ways to think about what wish you would have and how that could be carried forward. Finally, what thoughts do you have about your legacy? What you would like to outlast you into the future? Maybe there's a significant life project that you have, whether that's writing a book or collecting all of your family photos together, or a garden like we had talked about maybe. You know what legacy might mean to you, but have you articulated that? And have you then created a plan for how you would like your legacy carried forward? And who will carry it forward? Reflecting on these questions can help us to create lasting plans that can be there when we need them. And also flexibility, of that you can come back and you can change your mind. You can come to a different place emotionally or spiritually or physically where you need to change things. And it's good to have a place to start from. So I want to leave you today with a short message about relationships. And when I was doing the work on that piyut, that liturgy, one of the conclusions a rabbi had come to is that truly our relationships are our legacy. Our relationships carry on the love that we have given or not been able to give in our lifetime. And Roshi Joan Halifax asks the profound question, when you think about your death, who can you imagine there with you, surrounding you physically with care and love as you take your last breath? It is hard for me to imagine who that person is, and I feel very vulnerable when I think about it. I think each of us has this longing to come to a place of acceptance and wholeness and peace in our relationships, to come to the end of our lives where, whether it is a physical presence or an energetic presence of people we love, present or in the past. And healing our relationships comes in many forms and is often long and painful. There is no formula, there is no plug and play to healing our relationships. And reconciliation is not always possible. Sometimes the best way to find peace is to let go and to end painful or toxic relationships. We are always free to forgive and free not to. But a deep and true part of being perfectly imperfect is that each of us, in our heart of hearts, knows that there are ways that we can repair. That each of us has caused harm, intentionally or unintentionally, and each of us has been harmed. And a lifelong practice of being human is becoming aware and accountable to that power, to both harm and heal. And at this Days of Atonement reflection, we are invited to really humble ourselves and acknowledge, yeah, we've made some mistakes. People have hurt us and we may have closed off our hearts. How can we start to unravel that hardened heart, to reach out a hand and acknowledge the pain that we have actually caused and work towards repair? It's not easy, is it? No. Forgiveness is also a practice that has been shown to actually prolong our lives and our health by reducing stress and lowering our blood pressure. And hospice doctor Ira Byock, who is the author of the book Dying Well, which I really commend to you if you're looking for a secular book from a medical perspective that talks about the end of our lives and coming to that kind of resolution, and then bringing that into every day, not just the end of our lives, but living fully. And he shares the 4 basic forgiveness phrases that he believes everyone has a need to express in their life. Here they are. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. I love this practice because it offers a place to start. And to me, if you cannot say I forgive you, maybe you can say thank you. If you cannot say, please forgive me, maybe you can say, I love you. And each phrase opens a path towards deeper connection, a pathway on the process of forgiveness, not a destination. If only in all the days of our lives we might take the risk to have the courage to express these simple words. Who thinks they can offer one of those phrases this week? All right. Who thinks they can offer 2? Okay, good. Well, I'm going to share, I'm going to post this one online so you can see some of these phrases. And I'm going to offer some workshops going forward about asking some of these questions for ourselves, practicing this pathway of forgiveness. Because I think as Unitarian Universalists, there's something really critical for us to think about. And it's not baked into our faith. It's not baked into our spiritual practice. And there's something very beautiful about its centrality to so many faith traditions. And I think every year when we come to this high holidays time, it's an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity to do a spiritual inventory, a check-in with ourselves and our families, our community, and our sense of the sacred, whatever that may be to you. I'm going to close with these words from Rabbi Angela Buchdahl, who is the senior rabbi of Central Synagogue. And this was the synagogue that was closest to the Upper East Side congregation I served. And she said, if you've come to Rosh Hashanah and feel that there is nothing to examine, no wound in your life to heal, no relationship to repair, the shofar blast should be a wake-up call that reminds us to dig a little deeper, to bear into what is hard, to stop living life on the surface of it all. Perhaps this pain, this broken heart, has a purpose. May our broken hearts become whole. May our days be filled with meaning and purpose. May our deaths be with dignity and ease. And may our legacies be ones of healing, love, and justice. Amen, and blessed be.
Before our benediction and postlude, we're going to sing a prayer that is often sung during Rosh Hashanah. I would ask Danilo, thank you. I'm going to walk us through the pronunciation, and then I'm going to ask Danny to say a little bit about what we are saying. So the lyrics, the song goes, Leshana Tova Tikatevu. Repeat after. Leshana Tova Tikatevu. And we say again, Leshana Tova Tikatevu. And then Tikatevu. This is the timing of the music. Tikatevu. Vetechatemu. Vetechatemu. Danny?
Leshana Tova, it translates to may you be written and sealed for a good year. And that's referring to being written in the book of life. This provides an opportunity for us to reflect on ways to grow as well as express and experience gratitude for what we have.
Thank you. So let's sing, shall we? Oh, please rise. Please rise in body and or in spirit. Thank you. One more time. Leshana Tova Tikatevu. Leshana Tova Tikatevu. Tikatevu. Vetechatemu. Well done.
Our benediction words from Rabbi Max Kurt, father of our congregation's own Jonathan Kurt. The sounds of the shofar announces redemption and leads us on, announcing the good tidings of the year to come, a harbinger of peace to those near and far and to all of humankind. At the close of the service, we invite you to come forward to partake of the ritual foods of Rosh Hashanah, apples and honey, and delicious holiday challah bread. May it be a good and sweet year for all of us.
Adonai al-Rahum v'chanun erech apayim v'rav chesed ve'emet noser chesed lachim noser avan v'avesha v'chatach v'necha Adonai Adonai al rachum vechanun, erech apayim, veracha chesed ve'emet, noser chesed la'afim, nosei avan va'fesha, v'chatach ben